Hello everyone, welcome back to my humble pagan ramblings. So, I was reflecting on this past year and I've come to realize that most of you probably never knew me while I was a Wiccan. That is, most of you only know me for the heathen and Sumerian reconstructionist or revivalist that I am today. So, I thought that it would be fun today to go over the reasons why I no longer call myself a Wiccan. But before I embark to give an overview of what my former, not so wicked yet very Wiccan beliefs were, I am first obliged to provide this standard disclaimer. My former views and experiences by no means represent the entirety of the vast plethora of Wiccan opinions or beliefs, which, as a brief example, can range anywhere from polytheistic, monotheistic, to even atheistic. Now, with that delightful disclaimer out of the way, let's go over some basic Wiccan dual theology. So, the first incomprehensibly complex concept I will introduce is what we call the all. The all is everything in the universe and whatever may be beyond. However, to say that the all is conscious, like we humans are, is to be mistaken. The all is, as I thought of it, something beyond consciousness. That is to say, a different level of sentience. A level which, by definition, was beyond our human comprehension. Thus, one does not worship the all, since you cannot even begin to be able to grasp it. Rather, it is personified in forms to which we can relate. This idea is best illustrated by a famous story in Hinduism, that between Krishna and Arjuna. Arjuna, the king of Kuru, formed a close friendship with Lord Krishna, his charioteer. Arjuna asks Krishna to see his full form. Krishna does so, showing Arjuna a vast cosmic deity sustaining the universe. Arjuna, being totally overwhelmed, begs the god to return to his human form, to whom he can far more easily relate. The same idea extends to the all. That is, we humans break down the all into personified aspects which we can understand, called the god and the goddess. So, in my ever so lovely duotheistic framework, I saw the manifestation of these two as binary forces, in the sense of the Lord and the Lady. These two gods then manifested into all the other gods and goddesses throughout all the world's mythologies. Furthermore, these manifestations would occur in a model of three phases, which for the goddess was maiden, midwife, and crone, as well as for the god, the youth, the father, the sage. Thus, these forms are in turn the reason why we see archetypes manifesting in mythologies throughout all the religions in the world. So, case solved. Wicca is true, and therefore we polytheists should all become Wiccans right now. Or should we? So, why do I no longer walk the Wiccan way? Well, there are several reasons for this. Let's start with the theological gender issue. My first issue is the prevalence of gender essentialism within Wicca, which tends to manifest in very transphobic ways. Yeah, I'm staring at you, TERF Diana. As well as almost exclusive worship of the goddess to the practical exclusion of the god. The other issue is the tripartite analysis is sort of appropriative and presumptive of various traditions. For example, I've seen Wiccans refer to Inanna as a mother goddess. And while I wouldn't deny that certain goddesses can acquire new interests and attributes, the attitude of the Sumerians towards Inanna seems to have been one of more of an independent woman perspective. Other times, I've seen Wiccans having to completely reshape goddesses into roles which make completely no sense and are merely unchecked UPG, such as Athena as a mother goddess. And really, while UPG is good and whatnot, it seems pretty appropriative to simply toss out all of the thought and experiences of our ancestors in regards to the divine. Another problem I find that ties into gender essentialism are the concepts of divine femininity and masculinity within Wicca. These two concepts tend to be typically Western in view, even though the goddesses and gods that communicated with our ancestors did so in a way that they could understand, and thus in a manner of how femininity and masculinity were defined for the ancient pagan. Thus, what many a Wiccan has done, in my experience, is to apply these modern notions of femininity over those of our ancestors, and therefore lose the original teachings and lessons which the gods gave us. And while I do understand the need to bring religions into an era where the norms for men and women are different and getting better, they're still very far from perfect. I think that we must also build upon and learn from the past and understand, to the degree that we can, their symbolism. Otherwise, we are no better than the stereotypical white guy appropriating First Nations medicine. The other issue comes from studying Indo-European religion, which is wildly different in its historical forms and is filled with a plethora of different goddesses and gods, none of which really match this Wiccan idea that all gods and goddesses are the same god. To give an analogy, imagine if you are walking down the street and encounter two girls, both dressed in the similar feminine wear. Is it really logical to conclude that both of these girls are actually just the same girl? This analogy is descriptive of my experiences between meeting Froya and Inanna. Both were wildly different experiences, and to conclude that therefore they are different manifestations of the same goddess seems to me to be pretty illogical. Even if I grant that divinity is dual, to say that its manifestation as gods and goddesses break down into two categories is like saying that four people are the same, since they both have blood in their bodies. Okay, so on to this last one, which unfortunately can be applied to several other pagan faiths and is even prevalent amongst a decent minority of atheists whom I encounter on a regular basis, and that is this cult of monotheism. So, what do I mean by this loaded term? Well, with this term, I'm referring to the idea that there is one and only one spiritual truth, and that all others must necessarily be false. In Wicca, I saw this constantly when people would argue over which version of a myth was to be the so-called real version, such as whether Inanna was the daughter of An or whether she was the daughter of Nanna. In my view, both are perfectly valid interpretations, and the truth of one doesn't particularly matter for the other so long as they both have value and are true in their own way. This focus on there being one single truth that must be the case while all others are false strikes me as coming from a Christian origin. I mean, how many times have we all heard that my religion is the one and only one, that it is objectively true, from apologists throughout history? Sadly, this has come into Wicca and many other pagan circles in the form of a lack of polytheistic imagination. The idea that a multiplicity of spiritual truths isn't necessarily something that need be feared, and instead brings a liveliness that is simply lacking in other traditions that focus on such a literal single truth like young earth creationists do, is to me a loss, and it's something that we should strive to achieve in our revival of these religions. So now for the conclusion. We take all these reasons and combine them. I bit by bit sort of just theologically and religiously got pushed away from Wicca. And my new framework, which is hard polytheism, allows for me to have a lot more of a spiritual richness that is simply lacking in Wicca, because now I don't have to relabel various people's experiences. I don't have to put it into any particular hermeneutical style or anything of that nature. Instead, I am able to understand within the local context of that tradition what these things mean, and I am able to now more appreciate the various diverse cultures that make up the wide plethora of polytheistic religions. So, if you liked what you heard here, please remember to like and subscribe, and always feel free to share. I am Calon, and I am thrilled to be here.